All right, so we're most of us, well, all of us are familiar with the Me Too movement. So from star-studded celebrities to politicians and even academics, the spark of the Me Too movement has swept the United States in a great blaze, divulging the surreptitious behavior of venerable characters that were once esteemed. A glut of sordid affairs, including Christine Blasey Ford's sexual assault allegation against Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh, barrage mass media, and exposing man after man via social media, each predator, sleazy, powerful, and frequently unrepentant, is overtly castrated through their loss of reputation and professional career. The Me Too phenomenon, however, is not a singularity in the United States, but a manifestation around the world. Rapidly disseminating across digital media, feminists around the world have claimed this hashtag, identifying their unique struggles that pertain to their global location, making a visible statement. So in my presentation, I'm going to look at how artists specifically have responded to the Me Too phenomenon. I just wanted to give a little introduction for those who are not as familiar with the background of the Me Too movement. It was initiated by an African-American women's rights activist, Tarana Burke, in 2007, and it was brought to public consciousness by Alyssa Milano in her use of the Me Too hashtag in response to Harvey Weinstein. So feminists all over the world have been using the Me Too hashtag. Sometimes they've reclaimed that in their local languages and adapted it to the local struggles that they're having in their region. Me Too is also used to respond to a plethora of acts of sexual aggression, and it coincides with the resurgence of the far right in both United States and Europe. And in the picture here, I have a Chinese adaptation of Me Too. Me Too is actually censored in China, and creatively, people were using the emoji of a bowl of rice and a rabbit because that is the way that you pronounce Me Too in China. So people have come up with ways to get around censorship and expose the things that are going on in different regions of the world. So when I'm examining these global responses, it's really important to consider intersectionality as well, which means attention to issues of class, religion, ethnicity, sexuality, and disability. I'm also examining the universality of harassment in terms of domestic violence, rape, and femicide in many regions of the globe, with attention to social and political context as well. So the first official artistic response that I was able to find in some of my research is called We Are Not Surprised, which is a group of artists, art administrators, assistants, curators, directors, editors, educators, gallerists, interns, scholars, students, writers, and more that are from the art world that are officially taking a stand against harassment. It says, we have all been groped, undermined, harassed, infantilized, scorned, threatened, and intimidated by those in positions of power who control access to resources and opportunities. We have held our tongues, threatened by power wielded upon us, and promises of institutional access and a career advancement. And now I wanted to show you some artists from different areas of the world, starting in the United States, that are responding to different types of harassment. Currently on the Me Too page, there is no area for an artistic response. There's areas for responses in different industries, but not for visual artists. So one of the main things that I'm really interested in adding is a visual arts response to the Me Too movement, and making sure that what is in that space encompasses the global movement of it, not just within the United States, because this has become an international phenomenon. So this is an artist named Tatiana Fazla Liza, and I'm probably mispronouncing that. Fazlalazidade. So this is a Tatiana. I'll just say Tatiana. Tatiana is an artist who is in Brooklyn, New York, and she addresses gender harassment in her series, which is called "Stop Telling Women to Smile." It is an art series where she actually has women pose in areas where they encountered harassment. And in order to do that, it provides women with a voice to stand up to their harassers. Because in general, if somebody catcalls you, you don't necessarily have the opportunity to speak out to that person directly. So in her work, her goal is really to give women a chance to speak out within that area. This is another artist. Her name is Eliza Hatch, and her work is actually very similar to Tatiana's. She is a British artist, and her project is called Cheer Up Love. And she also looks and takes photographs of women in situations in which they are harassed. She actually has a blog that provides some really interesting stories about the situations in which she encounters these women as well. One of the most interesting responses that I found globally was to rape and gender violence in India. And this was a project that was conceived by a documentary film artist. And his name was Ram Devini. And it actually, the way he came about coming up with this idea to come up with this comic was he did a trip to India to work on a documentary film on a rape case, which actually made the news a lot in India, because most of the rapes that happened in India were against lower caste women, and this was a rape that was happened by and it was an upper class woman who was harassed and raped by lower caste men. So it made the news, and it actually made a big impact on policies within India. And so Devanini was inspired by this film that he was working on for his documentary, and he decided to come together with a poet and a producer, and they came up with a comic book, which is actually an augmented reality comic book. And it is available from anybody's phone. You can access it anywhere. There's also murals that go along with it as well that work with the augmented reality that are on the streets of India, and they really combat rape and violence. And the center character is inspired by a Hindu goddess, Parvati, and she fights sexual violence with her sidekick, who is a tiger. So he really intertwines Hindu myth and to bring about different cultural issues and women's violence issues. And these were some pictures that were from the comic. Femicide is also an important issue corresponding to Me Too, and this, I wasn't able to find any specific images for this, but this is a project that's called the Digital Dust, and it refers to some of the deaths that happened in the Ciudad Juarez, which is basically femicide of women. There's a large drug and prostitution problem in the area. There's also a lot of family violence against women in Juarez, and a lot of women were mysteriously disappearing. And what Chiara Bernardi does is she works to collect digital dust, which is a lot of pictures of protests and fragments of publications, and she pulls them together to create an archive of all of these missing women so that there's evidence of what's going on in the area. In terms of domestic violence, this is an artist, her name is Flavia Carvalho, and she is from Brazil. And she actually she inspired a lot of other artists around the world as well. She started doing tattoos on women that experience sexual violence in the home. And her project is called Pele de Flor, which she creates specifically beautiful flowers in the areas that women's bodies were destroyed. And she actually offers them for free. And this was actually a Russian artist, Eugenia Zakar, who actually read about Flavia and decided to carry on that tradition in Russia. And she also does predominantly floral tattoos. In Russia, there's a very serious situation where domestic violence has been pretty much decriminalized. And I think it was about 40% of, I'm trying to remember the statistic, that was, yes, 40% of all violent crimes in Russia take place within families. And my last artist that I wanted to share with you is a very young Pakistani artist. Her name is Elsa Mubashir Sajid. And she actually was very inspired specifically by the Me Too hashtag and decided to create a play about Me Too. And she focuses on some of the family dynamics within Pakistan in Pakistani families. Specifically, she looks at issues of education and how a lot of Pakistani families will pay money to send boys abroad for their education, and they will not necessarily spend money on the girls. She also looks at some family dynamics in terms of how women are supposed to behave and kind of dancing at weddings and the way that they dress. So she examines all of these issues in her play, which I thought was really inspiring that she was able to do that at such a young age. She has made a lot of major news in Pakistan, and I was actually able to talk to her a little bit about her play via social media, because in Pakistan there's a really interesting web page or Facebook page it's called Soul Bitches, and it is kind of a feminist inspired Facebook page with hundreds of thousands of Pakistani women, and kind of talking about a lot of these feminist issues that are going on in families and interconnecting women around the country. So I was actually able to talk to several different Pakistani artists this way. So it was a really interesting way to get some firsthand insight into what's going on in that country.
Okay. So on the page here that is our meetup page, I believe we have the Me Too. So we have the Me Too link. I have to look on my computer here to see. So she's being a cat. Let's see, yours is this one right here.